New York Giants fans, you got what you wanted. Brian Daboll's gone. Joe Shane's not gone. You still have the same defensive coordinator. And now the offensive coordinator that we don't even know if he can really legitimately call plays in the NFL is now supposed to be the leader of a team that didn't necessarily have offensive issues, but had defensive issues from the head coach who wanted a guy who was better. But all we heard was negativity. I'm here to talk about it all. I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I definitely have a giant issue with you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue Live. I'm Coach Gene Clemons, New York Giants on SI. That's where you get all of your New York Giants news and information. Make sure you go over there, check out everything that we're doing over there at the New York Giants SI. I can guarantee you it's going to be a lot of content about the firing of the head coach, about the next head coach, about different things that can be done over the next 7 games. I'm just here because I want to talk about what is right now. And you should always know when I am like really fired up about something because I take notes. Usually I try to like give you authentic, off the head. By the way, shout out to Authentic. Not that he's watching, but if he is, shout out to you. But I wanted to make sure that my ADHD brain didn't take over and lead me away from some of the things that I wanted to talk about. First off, I want to make it clear that last season during the offseason, I thought that this entire regime should be fired. I said it. It wasn't a situation for me where I thought that Brian Daboll was not a good coach. It wasn't even necessarily a situation where I thought Joe Shane had been absolutely awful, although you guys know I haven't been a Joe Shane fan from the beginning. I thought that where they were at that point in time with that pick that they had, with the things that they had done, I thought it was best to turn the page right now because, and I said it, if you allowed them to use that top pick to pick a quarterback, then in my opinion, you had to give them more time to see what they could do with that quarterback, or else you were actually going to set yourself back by doing it. You were going to set yourself back. I said I didn't understand why you would want a lame duck head coach and GM to come into a season with a brand new quarterback and a new kind of like vigor for what the team should be. I said that they did nothing. They doubled down. Not only did they double down on the head coach and the GM, but they doubled down on the defensive coordinator, who I thought was a terrible hire from the beginning. These are all documented. You can go back and check it in the records. Go back to some of these old giant issues and see what you see out there, right? Like it'll tell you everything you need to know. So while I'm thinking about like everything that's going on with this firing and how many people are seemingly like happy about it, like seem to be ecstatic about the fact that Brian Daboll is no longer the head coach. I just have one question, like, what now? Right? What now? He's gone. What changes? Right? We've gone. We've seen him. He's gone. What changes? And again, I'm going to try to roll my show like I normally do, but I do want to communicate. So if you want to like have some smoke back, feel free. Shout out to Kenneth Perkins. right? Right. Shout out to Kenneth Perkins for joining us. Iman Perry. Get on into that chat where guys are. PW Cho 50. Thank you for joining me. He says Bowen should have been gone before Daboll. He better be gone before this week's game. He won't be. That's just not how these things work. Kenneth Perkins says that the combination of Daboll and Schoen hasn't been good for the roster. Hold on. We've seen enough of Dart to know that he doesn't need Daboll. Dart is a star. And that's where I'd like to start with. Because I've heard a lot of people automatically crown Jackson Dart after what, 8 games or 7 games? I want y'all to think about this. The New York Giants currently are 2-8, right? So the New York Giants are 2-8, and in that 2-8, they've lost a few games where the margin was here, where they could easily be 6-4, 7-3. Let's go down the schedule. Let's look at it game by game. The first game of the season was a 6-21 loss or 21-6 loss. Okay, they're going to lose that. That's still the Russell Wilson era, right? Shout out to JDJ. Thank you for joining me. JDJ, by the way, I'm sorry because y'all know, again, my ADHD. I can't believe they're going to allow Shane Bowen to pick up a headset on Sunday. You, me, both, brother. Like, if you really want to get down to what I think is wrong with this team, right? You know what? I'll get to it. Let's go back. Week 2, they lost a 40-37 overtime game to the Cowboys, where they scored 37 points and still didn't get the win. 22-9 to the Chiefs. There's no harm in that. They beat the Chargers 21-18. They lost to the Saints 26-14, and this is where I'd like to start at, because in that game, right? In that game, they had multiple turnovers in that game. The first turnover, right? The first turnover where it kind of went bad for the Giants. That first turnover was the Slayton, if I'm not mistaken, right? It was the Slayton fumble, right? Like Slayton fumbled, and then they were able to take it back. This was in a second half where things was seemingly going right. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, right? Things were going right for them, but it went bad on the Slayton fumble. But then after that, right after that one fumble, you had Jackson Dart, right? The Saints game, 26-14. So you had the Slayton fumble that turned into a field goal, right? And then after that, you had Jackson Dart fumble. Then you had Cam Scatterbo fumble, another fan favorite. Then you had a Jackson Dart interception, and then another Jackson Dart interception. Would I be wrong in saying that Jackson Dart is the reason for that loss to the Saints? Would I be wrong in saying that Jackson Dart's turnovers in that game cost the Giants the opportunity to win? Of course, I wouldn't be wrong in saying it. It wasn't just him, but the defense played well that game. You got to take advantage of when the defense plays well, right? They gave up 1 touchdown over the top to Rashid Shaheed. Everything else was generated by turnovers from the quarterback, the running back, and the wide receiver. But again, that Darius Slayton turnover, the guy that y'all like to blame for everything and how he's terrible, right? That turnover led to a field goal. The Scatterbo turnover led to a touchdown, like immediately. The 2 interceptions by Dart turned into points. Here we go. So that's one loss that the Giants probably shouldn't have, that they had. That would have allowed them to be, get 2 wins in a row. That would allow them to have 2 wins in a row. Then they come out and do the unthinkable. They beat the Eagles. In that Eagles game, Jackson Dart turns the ball over 0 times. 0 times he turns the ball over. They win 34-17. The Giants versus the Broncos, right? That 33 points that they had, the fact that it was 28 to no, sorry. The fact that it was 19-8 in the fourth quarter, right? The fact that it was 19-8 in the fourth quarter. And we put all of the emphasis, all of the onus on that defense as to why they lost. Everything that we blame is blamed on the defense for losing that game. Everything that we do says, oh, it's the defense's fault, right? And again, I'm no Shane Bourne fan. And so, like, if you want to blame the defense, cool. But I'll give you a little something, right? I'll give you a little something. It was 26-16 with 5 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock when the New York Giants got the ball. They ran 2 plays, and on a 3rd and 5 with a guy wide open and lanes to see so that he could either run or pass it easily. Jackson Dart threw the weirdest pass to Theo Johnson that went directly into the hands of a defender. From there, they scored a touchdown that made the game 26-23 Giants, but now all of the momentum was on the Denver side. He could have squelched it. That could have been game over. That's a critical turnover. If you look in the game, he has 1 turnover in the game. 1. That's it. There's 1 turnover in this game, and that turnover is at the hands of Jackson Dart. They lose that game. That's 2 games that they could have won, right? If the golden boy, whom I think has played well, but has not played as well as many of you think, because you guys, for some reason, think that he's just quarterback proof. I mean, he's coach proof, right? He showed enough. That was the quote. That was the quote that we saw. He showed enough so far to say, oh, it doesn't matter who the coach is. Really? I digress. So then the next week, they go back to the Eagles after blowing that lead. They go back to the Eagles, and the Eagles beat them down. Why? Because the Eagles are a better team than the Giants. Remember when we said at the beginning of the year that this was the hardest schedule and that it was going to take a miracle for the Giants to even be 500? Everybody seemed to forget that. Everybody seemed to throw that right out the window, even after the team started 0-3. Even after the team started 0-3, people just forgot the fact that everybody said it was going to be a bad season. Everybody said this is going to be a difficult schedule. Okay, cool. You lose to the Eagles. You come back the next week against the 49ers, right? And you get beat. Why do you get beat? Because the defense can't stop water from running. Defense can't stop water from running. Right? But it's not like everything was bad. The offense still produced 24 points. If you produce 24 points in the NFL, you should be able to win a game if your defense is kind of sort of good. Right? If your scheme is kind of sort of good. But they lose that one. And then here's the Bears. The Bears, who the Giants are putting up massive numbers offensively. This had a chance to be Jackson Dart's best game of his career, right? His early career. This had a chance to be the best game of his career. He had over 200 yards on passing, which wasn't happening a lot, right? He had 300 yards of total offense, over 60 or 50-something yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. And then in the critical moment of the game, right, the Giants are driving in the third quarter, running that clock down, but driving. And then the offense calls a quarterback run for only the 4th time in the game. Because I know a lot of y'all are saying, oh, they're running him too much. But they're not. Right? Between the called runs, which were only 4, and then the times he just decides to run on his own, that's on him. You know what else is on him? When you're running and you want to be tough, you want to be physical all the time, you probably should protect the ball. Here's a fumble. It's a turnover. So what should have been them driving inside, because with that run, it would have took them inside the 20, right? Almost guaranteeing a field goal. I know. Right? Almost guaranteeing a field goal that would have put them up by 10. Or put them up by 13. Or if they put a touchdown on the board, it would have put them up by 3 scores. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the only turnover of the game. This game ends 24-20. The game ends 24-20. How is that not a pivotal moment that cost the Giants the game? Right? It's a pivotal moment that cost the Giants the game. And so when people are out here saying, oh, well, this is all Brian Daboll's fault, the last time I checked, he doesn't throw the ball. He doesn't run the ball. He doesn't tell the people who are running the ball how to run. He doesn't tell the people who are throwing the ball how to throw. Once he hits the button, the X button to start the play, they have nothing to do with it. It's all on the players to make the right decisions. Unfortunately, the rookie quarterback, right? The rookie quarterback has cost the team 3 games. Now, if the Giants are sitting here right now, right? If they're sitting here at 5-5, do you want Brian Daboll fired? Throw it in the chat right now. If the Giants are 5-5 right now, are you calling for Brian Daboll's head? Put it in the chat and be honest about it. Don't lie just because you want to be contrarian. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. And while you're doing that, here's what I will tell you. And I wrote this down. Because as a coach, nothing makes me more upset than when people just only blame the coach for the ineptitude of the team, or for the loss of the team, or for when the team is doing poorly, right? Here's what I wrote down. You fire the coach when the team is no longer competitive. This team's competitive. By the way, this team has been competitive even through the other 2 bad seasons. One of them, which was a 6-win season. The other was a 2-win season where everybody got hurt, including all the offensive line, and another year where the offensive line got hurt. Those things matter. And we can't be out here trying to act as if Jackson Dart is the only reason that you're doing well, because we saw this regime win games with castaway quarterbacks. Again, go back 2 years ago, right? When everybody was doing the Tommy DeVito. They were winning games. They were in games. They were losing close games. People wanted them to tank, but they were losing close games. When you go back to last year, not every game from last year was a blowout. Every game was a situation where you went, man, if they just had a few more pieces, if they just had a few more people healthy, if they just had consistent quarterback play, they could win more games. Cool. Now they have more consistent quarterback play, right? Now they have more consistent quarterback play. So yeah, this team has been competitive. And I said, you fire the coach when the team is no longer competitive. I can point you in the direction of some teams that haven't been competitive and go, they should fire him. You fire the coach when the team has given up. This team is not giving up. There's fight in this team, despite losing their best wide receiver, despite their best offensive lineman being out and into the lineup before the season, right? And if you're just joining now, I recommend you go back and listen to the beginning. Don't just jump in here because some of this might not make sense to you. I understand. Go listen to the beginning and work your way to this part. For the people who are popping on X, you might not be able to get back to the beginning. I'm not 100% sure, but go back and listen to the beginning later on. Right? But this team hasn't given up on this coach. Look, losing 3 fourth quarter leads doesn't tell you that this team hasn't given up. Yeah, the fact that they were in the game in the fourth quarter tells me that they haven't given up. It just tells me that there were things done in those games to lose, i.e., the quarterback turning the ball over. That has nothing to do with the coach. I know you guys just want to blame Brian Daboll only, but it's just not true. And if we're gonna do anything, shouldn't we at least be truthful? I digress. You never fire anyone because the fans demand it. That's something you probably don't want to hear. I had a coach a long time tell me, the moment you start listening to the people in the stands is the moment you end up joining them. You never fire anyone because the fans demand it. Why? Because the fans are thinking with their hearts and not with their heads. The fans will tell you, oh my gosh, they're running Jackson Dart too much. That's what the fans will tell you. They're running Jackson Dart too much. Look how many times they ran Jackson Dart in that game. They're going to get him hurt. It's their fault. We even saw Ryan Clark, who's always looking for a cause that's not really a cause to jump on so that he can talk his talk, right? We know what he does. People jumped on that narrative without doing any research. And shout out to Authentic, because I know he was one of the people who pointed it out. I have been saying it. They ran Jackson Dart 4 times. 2 of them were touchdowns. The other was a 10-yard plus run, and the run that they gave him that he fumbled on was going to be another 10-yard plus run. All he had to do was secure the football and act like he was running in traffic. People are out here acting as if they turned a pure pocket passer into a running quarterback. That's not true at all. That's not true at all. Jackson Dart has long been a guy who runs the ball. He's long been used in design quarterbacks runs. You think that this regime just looked up one day and went, hey, you know what? Let's see if Jackson Dart can run, and started running design runs for him. No. They saw it from him in college. They knew that that was a skill. That's one of the reasons why they wanted him. And yet, you would hear these narratives by some other content creators by fans, by people who have large followings telling you, oh, they're running him too much. 4 design runs for a guy whose best attribute so far has been his legs is not, it's not the thing. It's not the move. You guys got to be, you got to be honest with yourselves. You got to be serious. His best attribute so far has been his legs. It has not been his arm. People keep going back to losing the games. Losing these games, they're egregious, but you don't lose these games if you don't turn the ball over. Coach, why do you think it was because of the fans after the Broncos game? It said they had enough, but if Daboll and his entire, I don't believe those. I don't believe those stories. But hey, but let's say it's true. Let's say that after the Broncos game, the ownership was ready to fire Brian Daboll right then. Let's say that's true, right? Why do you think that they wanted to fire Brian Daboll right after that game? Because they were emotional and they were upset. They were fans. They were fans. Cooler heads prevailed because they realized, hey, we're acting like fans. I went, oh, that's just a team that hasn't learned how to win yet, how to win consistently yet. That's a team who's still trying to figure out how to win consistently. That's a team that's trying to figure out how to close out games. Right? You got to go and look back. Even the stuff that y'all are saying in the chat's not true. The game that he turned the ball over in, it wasn't a 3-score game when he turned the ball over. It wasn't a 3-score game. That's just not true. Right? When he turned the ball over in that game versus the Broncos, right? It was a 10-point lead. And I'm going to go and I'm going to double check because I don't want people to say I'm just shooting from the hip, but I'm pretty well versed on this. When he turned the ball over, that interception happened. It was 26-16 Giants. They went on to score a touchdown that made it 26-23. That's a 10-point lead. So if he doesn't turn the ball over, if he just keeps it and they punt it away, is there a chance that they might score a touchdown anyway? Absolutely, there's a chance. But you know what they would not have done? They would not have gotten it in good territory, right? Able to just score really quick, right? Because he returned it to the Giants' 19-yard line. So they were right in position to score. 4 plays later, touchdown. I know what the narratives are. I know what people want to feed you. But we're just talking truth here. And the problem is that it seems like you Giants fans don't want to operate in truth. Y'all just want to make up whatever is in your head to get what you want done, which is fire the coach. Cool. Now he's gone. You're going to put the person underneath him, the handpicked person. You're going to put that person in charge now? Yo, guess what could possibly happen? They could possibly win games. You know why? Because the back end of the schedule isn't as tough as the front end of the schedule. These last 7 games are not as tough as the first 10. So they could win some games. Are you gonna talk yourself into Mike Kafka as your head coach? Are you guys smoking crack? Mike Kafka, who before he came over here was nothing more than just a guy helping a quarterback who was already a GOAT. That was his claim to fame, that he was in the room. Not that he had done anything, not that he had made any moves. He came from Kansas City. Guess what happens to all of those coaches when they leave Kansas City to go other places? They flame out. Why? Because the sauce is over there in Kansas City. It's called Andy Reid. The sauce is there. And now you want Mike. Oh, well, Mike Kafka, he had interviews with teams. Yo, I know people. They said when he when he had the interview with the Titans, it was not a great interview. I'm not making this up. Unlike other people, when they talk about things, I don't have a reason to make anything up. I'm not out here trying to break news. That's not my ministry. I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you what I know because I talk to people who know. So, like, thinking about Mike Kafka getting this head coaching job is crazy. Now, here's why I think Brian Daboll should have been allowed to finish the string. Number one, if it's bad, let him put those numbers on his resume. Let him put those losses on his resume. Stamp the end of his tenure with misery, if that's what it is. Right? But also, I'm trying to understand how we're clamoring and we're celebrating the man losing his job, but not saying anything about Joe Schoen. And I shouldn't say not, because there's people who obviously want Joe Schoen gone. But Joe Schoen is the problem here. Right? Joe Schoen is the problem. Joe Schoen, and it's not even his drafting, because people get caught up on the drafting. When they took the job and they made those first moves, I was the person on here saying, hey man, why does it seem like they're trying to get rid of every single player who was on this team before that regime came in? You think that was Brian Daboll? Brian Daboll clearly isn't doing anything with the personnel. The first time we ever heard about Brian Daboll having a hand in the personnel was Jackson Dart. And all of you are in love with Jackson Dart. That's the guy that seemingly Joe Schoen didn't even want. He didn't even want Jackson Dart. And so now, him not wanting Jackson Dart and having weird, not inconsistent returns on several, not just one or two, but several moves that he's made. How is he not gone? He's the one who brought in Russell Wilson after already having Jameis Winston in the fold. Right? He's the one who wanted Rome Odunze over Malik Neighbors. It was Brian Daboll that said, hey man, we're taking Malik Neighbors 10 times out of 10, whatever he said, you know what I'm talking about. But like, Daboll was on Neighbors. Like, he's the one who let go not one, but two legitimately good starting safeties who had versatility and replaced them with guys with no versatility. He replaced them with second-level safeties who have zero or limited ability to cover at the third level, but who don't hit like linebackers. Julian Love was drafted and developed, moved from corner to safety, and became one of the better safeties in the league. They let him walk. Why? Because they didn't want to give him a couple more bucks. Xavier McKinney was in many people's summation, was the captain of the defense. He was the heart and soul of the secondary. Another guy who could come down and hit you, but cover third level. He let him walk out the door. I'm not saying that the defense, the run defense has ever been lights out, but it was much better when Leonard Williams was here. And everybody celebrated them getting a draft pick for Leonard Williams. And they're still trying to find somebody to play next. They're still trying to find someone to play next to Sexy Dexy. He was the one who re-signed Dexter Lawrence early. He was the one who re-signed Andrew Thomas early to huge contracts, only to then have to turn around and restructure those contracts like a year later. He's the one who drafted a tight end, only to then trade for a tight end, then next year draft another tight end, then draft a tight end in the next draft while bringing in a pass catching tight end and a running tight end. And a run blocking tight end. How bad can you be at tight end evaluations when in a 3-year period you bring in 8 different tight ends, you can't find one? He's the one who drafted a running back, only to then draft another running back, then draft another running back, then draft another running back, only to bring in a running back from outside, and have him out here clipping the backs that you actually brought in. It was you out here bringing in all of these obscure defensive backs, guys that were not on anyone's radar as being high-level dudes, and then wondering why, because y'all wanted a certain type at wide receiver, you haven't had success. You're the one that said goodbye to all of these high-level talents that may not have been perfect, but fit well in the island of misfit toys. You want to know what Brian Daboll is responsible for? This is the one knock on Brian Daboll for me. Y'all aren't gonna like it. Because again, I think the entire team, the entire regime came in together and had to leave together. And since I wanted Joe Schoen gone, Brian Daboll had to go too. But in a vacuum, Brian Daboll's not the problem. Look at the steps that the offense is taking without the elite weapons. Y'all keep talking about these dudes don't have elite weapons, and then you're not mentioning the fact that the offense is putting up points on a week in, week out basis. Y'all talk about the stability of the offensive line and how the offensive line is much better, but you're not giving the head coach who hired the offensive line coach any type of credit for hiring the offensive line coach. But you're blaming him for the defensive coordinator. And that is where I believe Brian Daboll cost himself his job. His tit for tat with his former defensive coordinator cost him a guy who was perfect when you don't have the perfect pieces. What he would have done with these edge rushers out there in his system would be so much more dynamic than what Shane Bowen is doing. I guarantee you, somebody would have still led the league in sacks. You just would have had more people with more than just 1.5 sacks. If there's anything that you blame Brian Daboll for, that's what you blame him for. That's what should cost him his job. Because he said, hey, let's get this dude in here so that he can stop the run, only to not stop the run, only to be much worse. With his personnel, the non-imagination on defense, the predictability on defense, And no, Big Moo, shout out to you. What's up? I don't think they'll let Kafka decide if Bowen stays or goes. I don't think Kafka is going to have any decision powers. I think he's out there as a figurehead alone. And if that's the case, why would you not keep Brian Daboll out there? Even if you knew you were going to fire Daboll at the end of the season, why not allow them to put the bow on this thing? But everybody's got to go now. Everyone has to go now. And if everyone doesn't go, then it says more about the Giants and what they're trying to get done than it does about the people they let go. Because I can tell you what's going to happen. I know y'all don't want to hear this. And no, he did not. Brian Daboll did not lose the team. That is, you didn't listen from the beginning, Isaac. I appreciate you joining me, but that's just a terrible narrative. Brian Daboll did not lose this team. Brian Daboll lost games, but that team was still out there fighting and executing for him, trying for him, or trying because they're professionals. We don't even have to put it on trying for him because I think that's a little overrated. They were trying because they were professionals, but they had not given up on Daboll. He just did not win games. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You better get ready because Brian Daboll's going to land somewhere very quickly. And if he lands somewhere very quickly with a competent quarterback and he comes back to see the Giants, he's going to be a nightmare. This is not the last you're going to hear from Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll is a really good coach. Now, he might not be a great head coach, right? He might not be a great head coach. But he's a really good coach. You should care. You should care. Like, the whole we don't care, that's the problem with you New York Giants fans now. I've been talking about it. If y'all don't care so much, then why is it that you spend all this time bitching and complaining? Because you care. So stop saying you don't care. You care watching Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia balling out. You care watching Xavier McKinney in Denver becoming defensive player of the year. You care watching the countless amounts of offensive linemen who you said sucked here go somewhere else and be good. You care when you watch Daniel Jones perform well in Indy. You care. So stop saying you don't care. Come up with something different. You care about all of it. And that record is not only on him. It's on everybody, including the fans. Because if you're never, ever positive about anything, then that negativity just permeates everything. Again, I said in my piece, Joe Schoen should be out of a job. He's not. Right? Joe Schoen should be out of a job. He's not. Brian Daboll should lose his job because Joe Schoen should be out of a job. So Brian Daboll had to go. It just shouldn't have happened like this. Mike Kafka shouldn't be anywhere near this team come 2026. Maybe you try to keep your O-line coach in place. Everybody else needs to go. I don't even understand why Shane Bowen still has a key card. Like, I don't even understand how he still has a key card. But that's what we get. Hey, you're gonna hear him a lot from me because I do want to talk about the game, but I don't want to exhaust any more time. I think I've said enough. Hey, to everybody out there that joined me, that's listening, a lot of you that's not talking, which is cool. I don't mind that. Shout out to the 425 people who are watching on X right now. Peace and blessings to y'all. Hey, make sure y'all come and like, subscribe if you don't already subscribe to the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel, because I don't normally go live and for my podcast. And when I drop the podcast, I don't drop the podcast on X. So if you want to see what we're talking about on a Giant issue, come and join me. I will talk to you all very soon. Until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a Giant issue.